Okay, what I'd like to have is a demonstration person who has some moderate or severe difficulties with other people in feeling imposed on, or somehow feeling like they have to do what other people want, that kind of thing. Does that give you enough of what I'm looking for? If someone asks you for something, you kind of have to give it to them, or you don't want to, or they have undue effects on you in some way. Other people are somehow, all of us, I think, have this to a certain extent, so it's not like it's a particular thing, but almost anybody could probably do. You want to come up?
A Messiah complex.
You have a Messiah complex?
Well, today I don't, but
okay.
If I don't take care of you, he'll take over.
Now, what's that?
I said, if I don't take care of that core belief of I'm responsible to make others okay, if I don't take care of that inner child,
I
then
see.
He will run the day.
Huh. That's a little different than what I was looking for, but let me think a moment. Anybody else while we're thinking about this? It's a fairly simple process. It's not a big, long, involved process. I could even do it with you all at once if you want.
Okay.
That's
Group hypnosis we do now.
I shall go into my Milton Act.
I only have with my ex-husband, not with everybody, so I don't know if that works.
Just with him.
Hmm?
Just with him.
Just with him.
Okay.
The rest of us just don't do it.
Sure, come on up. Let's do that. Okay. In everyday life, I'm just going to give a little introduction and
Sure.
they can listen in. In everyday life, we have typically sort of our personal space. Like, I hope I'm not too close to your personal space right now. Is that okay?
Great.
But if I were to get closer, at a certain point,
Yeah, it would bother me.
at a certain point it would bother you. And that's true of everybody. It's almost as if we had some kind of a bubble around us, or something like that, kind of like a protective boundary. This is my space, that's your space over there. And you know, in intimate situations, the bubble may either enclose someone else or just kind of fade away or something like that. In dangerous situations, the bubble might go out farther. And you know, if you're walking down a dark neighborhood at night, rough neighborhood at night, you might be very, very wary. And especially in the military, I'm sure this becomes something that's way out there, so you have advance notice. Okay? So it can change in size, and it can change in quality. And the question that I ask you is, what sort of bubble do you have? If you think about what sort of protective boundary around you. Boundary is a more neutral term in terms of your own space and somebody else's space.
Well, it looks like a soap bubble.
Soap bubble?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very thin and basically a bit of color, but
What color is it?
like, you know, they have this little part where there's like a rainbow in the bubble.
Oh yeah, okay.
So just that
So it's a little bit of rainbow in part of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just the size that it needs to be to protect me, not too big, not too small.
Okay. So, for example, if you're in a difficult situation, where would it be? Difficult communication with somebody else?
Well, I would be in it.
Right. But how far out would the bubble be?
So it's something like this.
Okay. Yeah, about arm's length?
Yeah.
A little less, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. And in a very dangerous situation, what would happen to your bubble?
Depends on the situation.
Probably, sure. Give me an example. Well, I don't need to know content, but just think of some situation where you might want to have extra protection.
Well, I guess it would have
some form of force field. I don't know.
Okay, great. I think that's a good choice. Yeah.
A
Soap bubble.
lighted force field or something like that.
Okay, yeah. So it could sort of strengthen,
Yeah.
right? Because soap bubble, you just,
Yeah. In some situations in my life, it's like that,
okay. Would you like that to be different?
of course.
Okay. I like the idea of a force field. Now, I'm just going to talk a little bit and then we'll go back to playing with it a little bit. A soap bubble is very thin. You described it as very thin, like
Yeah.
a soap bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And that means it's a very digital boundary. That
Yeah.
someone is either inside or outside. And that means that you need to react fairly quickly.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a time for that, and there's a utility to that. But there's also something I'd like you to explore, is if you had a force field, you know, if you push two magnets together and they push apart,
Yeah.
the closer they get, the more they push.
Mm-hmm.
So that if something were coming toward you that was somehow threatening or difficult for you to deal with, that the force field could, the closer it gets, the more it can push back,
Mhm.
something like that. So that it wouldn't pop like a soap bubble.
Okay.
I'd like you to close your eyes and explore doing that, trying out that modification on your boundary.
Okay.
Does that seem useful?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what other changes could you make with this boundary to make it more useful for you? See, these are things we all develop, and different societies, different cultures develop different ones. In the Middle East, typically they're very close, and so they're get very close to other people, and it's not coming into the boundary. In Sweden and places like that, the boundary is much farther out, and so
Mm-hmm.
there's this joke about if the Swedish ambassador is talking to the one from Kuwait or something like that, it's as if the Kuwaiti is chasing the other one around the room, because the Kuwaiti tries to get into his comfort zone, and that's not comfortable for the guy from Sweden, so he backs up, and then they end up chasing them around the room. So there are cultural differences, which means they're learned, but they're also learned unconsciously, arbitrarily, and some people can make, as far as I know, I've explored this a lot with a lot of different people, and I've yet to find somebody who couldn't make some improvement in their boundary to make it more useful. So you find that making this force field is good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, is the force field a small digital boundary, or is it more analog? Is it?
Analog.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
And explore the difference.
And it can expand, like,
Right. And it can move
Yeah.
contextually.
yeah.
Are there contexts in which you can allow this boundary to just dissipate, turn into fog?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. It's nice, huh?
Not
But some people
not
don't.
every life situation is dangerous.
Exactly. Okay. You mentioned it had little rainbow colors before. What color is the force field now?
Greenish.
Greenish.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now you could explore with changing the color of the force field. Try different colors and see if there's another color that's even better. The fact that you came up with green is probably a good indication that that's a good choice,
Okay.
because you probably didn't go through a long decision process to decide what it was.
No.
You just found out it was green. So a spontaneous color like that is probably a good one. But who knows, you could find something different.
Well, it can change, like, between green and blue, but light blue, but
Okay,
but they're mixed together. It's not like it's
Okay.
either or green or.
great. Okay, good. Would it be better to be green in one situation and blue in another?
No, they work well together.
They work well together. Okay, great. Now, is there any other modification you might want to make to your force field? Make it more useful to you. Or another question, another better way to ask this question is, put yourself in some situation with your ex-husband.
Okay.
Now, did you notice the shift there? Oh, oy vey.
He's actually a really good person, so.
Good, great. But there are difficulties.
Yeah.
Okay. So think of one of those situations and find out how can you respect his situation and also maintain your own situation, whatever that is, in terms of your opinions, your ideas, your plans, your dreams, etc., so that this boundary keeps you separate, and so that he doesn't, whatever he does, it doesn't become an attack or an impingement or a demand on you. Give you some safety, some
Well, I don't know, just one thing just went through my head is that the force field gets closer to me, and I feel it cooling me down.
Okay.
So like I have this cooling sensation, and I
Okay.
feel more calm.
Great. So if the force field comes into a little bit,
Yeah.
okay, it cools you down and you feel calm. That's a wonderful modification. Great. So think of another situation with your ex-husband, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. We talked a little bit by email, so I know a little bit more than you guys do, and I just realized that. Okay, so think of another situation with your ex-husband. How could you, and pay attention to this boundary that you have. And is there any difficulty with it, as you have it now, with the blue-green and the force field? And it can come closer to you and cool you down and calm you down.
Yeah, I think I don't always hear him right, because
Okay. What would make it easier for you to hear him correctly?
I guess letting go of things in the past.
Okay, so when he speaks, it evokes things from the past?
Not specifically things he did, maybe things I did. But
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let me offer something that's sometimes useful to people.
Okay.
That you can hear his voice through this force field, right?
Yeah.
Is it-
I feel like I need a window that can open in the force field. Like
Okay.
if it's a closed force field, I'm almost claustrophobic, and I'm not
Okay.
claustrophobic. I
Okay.
never were.
Right. Well, you certainly wouldn't want that to come in too close.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, try it out. If you have your force field too close to your skin, in mummy time, right? But somehow for her to bring it in somewhat is useful in terms of calming you down and so on. So open a little window in this,
Okay.
or you can make the whole force field more transparent. That's up to you. And you can experiment. You can
Yeah.
play.
I think a window is good.
Okay? How big would the window be? The oval or square?
I think it would be a round window.
Or okay. Round or oval. Okay. So try that out. Close your eyes. Imagine some difficult situation with your ex-husband. Does it help to have this window so that
Yeah.
you can really see him clearly?
Yeah.
Okay. And you can hear him clearly, is that right?
Yeah. And he can hear me clearly.
Okay.
Which
Good.
doesn't happen a lot.
But right now it does?
Right now it does.
Okay. Well, we may have changed this.
Yeah.
We'll see. So when you go back, imagine you're going back and you might talk to him again, something about the kids or something. Just try out this. We've made some adjustments in your boundary, so it's no longer a soap bubble. Now it's a force field, and it can come in a little bit and calm you down and cool you down. And you have this window, and you can hear each other clearly. And just find out how it goes.
Yeah, it's much better.
Much better? Can you say a little more about how it's better? Is it less misunderstanding? Or?
I think the communication is better. And even if we start getting annoyed with one another or whatever, then we're able to stop it at the beginning and say, okay, let's not do that. And basically...
Time out or
yeah,
something like that?
yeah. And basically be in agreement about things.
Be more focused on what you agree on rather than what you disagree?
Or find a way to agree on something that we...
Okay.
Like if it's something about the kids that we have to decide together.
Sure.
To be able to be in agreement, find a way to agree on things that are important.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
No, that was great.
Okay. Pretty
Thank
simple and easy, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you can always go back and explore more. Think about different contexts where you might have some difficulty communicating with somebody else or some particular content or whatever. And see, is there any adjustments I could make? Maybe in some of the situations, maybe the force field would be better out farther. Maybe it would be better some different color or different material or a different kind of force field. I don't know. But the basic idea is experiment and then test and find out how does it work in imagination. Okay?
Great. You really helped me because we're meeting in Disney World together, so...
Oh, going to Disney?
Yeah, the kids and us. So
Okay.
it'd be a good chance to...
Test it out.
Yeah.
Will you let me know?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, let me just, this is a small piece I think we can do before lunch and still have time for a reasonable lunch. I don't have many guidelines for you. I have a few guidelines for you. All I know is we all have some kind of bubble around here. If it's a steel bubble, then probably nobody ever gets through. And it's probably hard to let go of it in certain contexts of intimacy or friendship and so on. If you have a soap bubble, it's too easy to pop. And so some boundaries are rigid, and rigid boundary is very protective for a while, and then it tends to shatter rather than having the cushion. So in general, I would go for this kind of force field boundary where it's sort of spongy or soft, and not a simple digital thing where it's in or out. If somebody enters your space and it happens all in it's a millimeter or two, then you have to react fairly quickly. If something is more spongy and soft and there's a range, then you have more advance warning. Someone comes in a little bit too close, then you can kind of get alert like this. And then if they come in a little closer, then you get more alert. They come in closer, you get more alert. You don't have to have that lightning fast response. Now, there's times for a lightning fast response. If it's a true emergency, if it's a real do or die thing, a real, like in the military often it is, then you want to have a boundary that is digital. And if somebody gets too close or they do the wrong thing, you want to be able to respond instantly with whatever your training is. So there's a time for that. In most of my interactions with other people, it works better to have a more analog. It starts here and it comes in and all the way to me. Some people, when someone else insults them or makes a bad, something that they don't like, it's as if the words go into their heart. The words go into their body. It's almost, they feel like it just plunges in like a knife going into their body. That's a good sign of a very poor boundary. And one of the things you can do there is, assuming you have a boundary out here like this, it's at least fairly transparent so you can see through it all right, is to print the words out on the boundary. And then you can read the words and have a much more measured response to what the person is saying, and rather than being the quick rage or the quick sudden response. So there are a lot of little tricks you can do. And what are the general principles? There are many things apparently are very personal, they're very metaphoric, they're very individual. Why blue-green would be better for her rather than magenta or puce or some other color, I have no idea. I don't know any rule about that. You can experiment and you just find out. If you try making it a different color, does that make it worse or better? And then test in situations where you want to have protection. like with an ex-husband, where it's bound to be some kind of difficulties and stuff, or other people, bosses, underlings, anybody that you have some difficulty communicating with, experiment in that context with making adjustments in your boundary, and just play, basically. But the analog thing is very important, analog versus digital. And again, they both have advantages, but in most of our life situations, at least in civilian life, it's better to have a more analog thing. Whereas in certain other true emergencies, life or death, you want to be able to respond instantly. So everything, one of the principles is every behavior is useful in some context, and every skill is useful in some context. And on the other side of it, every skill is a hindrance in some context. As someone who has learned in the military to have an instant response to a particular thing, and to do that a lot and be hyper-vigilant, and then it comes home and the wife says something, or somebody in the drugstore says something, and they respond instantly with violence or whatever, or preparation for violence, it doesn't fit so well. So every skill is useful somewhere. And part of working with someone who has that kind of hypervigilance problem is to say, look, in those situations, absolutely right, completely appropriate. And then to make some division between that and contexts where it's not so appropriate. Okay, any questions before I put you to work? I'd like you to play at least a little bit before lunchtime. Yes?
Can wait.
Okay.
It's actually a bigger conversation on wait time.
Okay, let's wait then, yeah. Anything else on the boundary thing? It's a very simple little piece. It's not like the one you just went through with all the different steps. It's basically put yourself in there, what do you got? How can you change it? And play with it in context. Play with it in different contexts. What do you want it to do? What do you want your boundary to do in a context of intimacy? What do you want your boundary to do in a situation of potential physical attack? What do you want your boundary to do when you're talking with your wife or your partner or your spouse or whatever? And I'd like you to play with that for, how about if you get in pairs? First, just do your own. First, just, like if I were doing it with Eric, we just sit down and we just explore our own. And then we, after 5 minutes, share back and forth what we've discovered, and I could try on his boundary and he could try out mine, and just play a little bit and suggest modifications to each other, try different things out, just explore a little bit. And go for about 20 minutes, and then we'll have maybe 10 minutes to come back, and we'll break for lunch at 12:30. And this will be much easier than what you did this morning, and simpler.
So basically, we ask them how the bubble would look like, or it's their choice if it's a bubble or something else?
Whatever. Oh, you probably wouldn't use the word bubble, boundary.
Okay.
Boundary is more neutral. Sort of your personal space versus other people in other situations. And first, just explore your own. You've seen, all of you have seen what I did with Ronit. And you just close your eyes and explore your own for about 5 minutes. See how much you can discover on your own. And then share and contrast and compare. Find out how they're different, and then try out different things. Get wild. What if your boundary had sparkles on it? What if your boundary had sequins on it? What if it turned black? I mean, just try out a lot of stuff. Some of it will work and some of it won't. Or some of it will be useful and some of it won't. But just explore and play. It's a very simple little thing, but it can really have profound impacts on people's behavior. It's very metaphorical. It's not a 1, 2, 3 thing. And it's a lot of exploration and play.
I found this exercise very fascinating.
Okay.
In watching it happen,
Yeah.
and then in playing with it myself.
And I think it has pretty fascinating possibilities in working with people.
Yes. That has a lot of applications.
Oh, yeah. yeah, anyway, so I was surprised at my own. I would never have guessed that that's
Okay.
what I perceived, and I certainly wouldn't describe those. If somebody asked me to describe it, I would never have described it in the way that I did, so that was fascinating to me. And I
Okay.
had one that was very, very far out.
Okay.
Very, so it's just fascinating.
It can have quite an impact on behavior.
Oh, yeah.
My son just texted me photos.
Yeah?
They're in New York right now.
Mhm.
So one of the photos included my ex-husband.
Mhm.
And I started smiling. So I guess that's a first.
So we have now we have long-term feedback. Okay, well, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
Good. Anything else on the boundaries?
We noticed that there was a difference in the boundary dependent on whether Alton someone was kind of moving in towards his boundary versus he was moving towards them.
Sure.
So that sort of permission or non-permission,
Mm-hmm.
that was interesting.
And did you find some adjustment that made it work well for both of those, or is it just different?
It just didn't seem like it needed to be changed.
Okay, great.